Welcome to Guidance for Better Life. Today I'm happy to have a good friend who's also an author, Renee Walker, with us today. She loves her dad, and he's passed now, but she had a long, loving relationship with her dad, but the love was not demonstrated very often by either party. It was a very strained relationship from childhood till adulthood, but she found a solution, a healing solution that if it worked for her, it just might work for some of you. So I really hope you stay tuned, and I'm sure today's going to be a really interesting show. Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
You're an author.
I am. Thank you.
Your stories and testimonies of God's love, book 3.
That's correct.
I don't know the chapter, but they can find it in there. It's a healing letter.
Yes.
But it's more than just a letter. So before we get into the solution, you had a strained relationship.
I really
for a long
did
time.
from a long time, from where young. My dad had some instabilities mentally, and it was a very volatile family dynamic very early on. And I would shut down in response to all that. And so
Did you had a love?
there was love there,
But it's just-
absolutely.
Rather than demonstrate your love, you would tend to shut down.
Yes.
You said he had some mental health issues and some
Correct.
depression.
Yeah, he did.
So the love was there,
Yes.
but it didn't come out
Come
very
out.
often.
No,
Okay.
not
right.
at all. But
And that was since you're a little child?
since
way
I was
back.
a little child, yes.
Okay.
And then I had an opportunity while I was up here at a class that you were teaching and got some spiritual help.
Do you want to share that?
I would love
You were up
to.
here at the Nature Awareness School,
Correct.
and what did we do? We did an exercise in one of the classes. Would you like to share
Yeah,
that?
you suggested that we do a spiritual exercise of writing a letter of love and appreciation that would be healing. And that was the guidance that was given.
Okay.
And immediately I knew that I would want to
your
write
dad?
to my dad.
Of all
Yes.
the people you could write a love letter to,
Yes,
you knew right away it was for your dad.
absolutely. Because you love someone, but if it doesn't come out, it gets bottled in there, and then there's some guilt, and there's just not good things.
Yes, it doesn't just get blocked. Like you said, it turns into guilt
Yes.
and other things. So what was the exercise?
So it was just very general to, write a letter of appreciation and love, but also to Hugh first,
Right, we did the Hugh love song. And why the Hugh?
because it lifts our consciousness up
Right.
and it helps open us to be more receptive, and you get a higher view.
And opened your heart.
Yes.
And during the Hugh, which is a love song to God, but since that raised you up and it opened your heart, did you start seeing some good qualities finally that maybe you've forgotten about?
I was able to see ways that my father demonstrated his love to me that not necessarily I accepted or I saw
Okay.
earlier. I could also acknowledge and own my part of the hurt that I caused and the sorrow that I caused him by shutting down and not being very receptive and not demonstrating that love.
So it wasn't just your dad. It was takes two to tango.
It does. It really
But-
does.
Two of you were both locked down and demonstrated love. So you sang a Hugh love song to God, and it raised you up to a higher view. And that's when you got past all the blocks and you saw more clearly that he did love you.
Absolutely. But there was
Okay.
one other important part about that is I also invited the divine in. I asked very clearly for help from the divine in writing that letter. So that made a big difference as well.
Okay, we'll get to that later. It's not just the letter.
Yeah.
So if somebody writes a letter at home and they're in a grumpy mood, would you recommend that?
No, not at all.
So the key to the letter, before we go on, was that you were very open, more open than probably you've been in a long time.
Exactly.
And you saw clearly past all the butting heads and the blocks, and how one of you would say something and the other would automatically go in a certain direction or close down.
Correct.
So the hue, by singing that love song, you lifted up above that and you looked down on that.
Yes.
So if you had written a letter with your heart closed, it probably would not accomplish anything.
No.
So the big part of there's more to this story, but the letter part, which is an integral part, but it's not the only solution that Renee's going to share. It's important to write the letter after you pray, or if somehow, we sing Hugh often up at the school, but you've got to get your heart open, or you're going to write a letter and probably cause more problems than good. I also remember suggesting that you did not have to send it.
That is correct.
So you could write and be totally free because you weren't going to send it anyway. It was just for you.
Right. But
So
I did.
Why did you decide to send it?
I felt pretty strongly that if you made a suggestion, and I know that it was coming from the divine, that I really wanted to send that.
Okay, it felt right.
It really did.
And that's the second part. A letter with your heart open, you were raised up, so you saw more clearly. So the letter was genuine from the heart. But you also said you had a prayer.
Yes.
You were basically writing a letter. Were you actually praying for help to express
Yes.
yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, from a very small age, I was very locked down. House wasn't particularly safe, so I had a lot of fear
Okay.
and not the good things. And to get over that wall, because once you kind of close your heart,
It's
your
tough
heart is closed.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to open back up.
And
But you did it. There's more to this story.
yes,
So between writing a letter, but from a higher state, you were very open and very clear. And the divine, you think the divine helped you?
absolutely.
All right, so he gave you clarity, and then you were praying to write a letter, what, from the heart?
From the heart.
Okay.
I mean, I could write a letter, as you mentioned, from my heart being closed. And it's kind of like if you do one thing and you continue to do it the same way,
Same
you
results.
get the same
Yeah.
results. But here was a gift of an opportunity
Okay.
to approach it differently. And I love my dad, you know,
But you
and
couldn't
so
had a hard time expressing it. And he seemed to have a hard time expressing it back.
exactly.
So the love was there. You saw that. You saw you did love your father, and he loved you because the divine, you feel, brought you to a higher level.
Absolutely.
So your prayer was answered. Partly divine took you higher, plus the hue. And then you also had a prayer. I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure if I understand it. Did you pray to write a letter that would help your relationship? What was the specific prayer? Or was it just generally you wanted to heal the relationship? And you may not have an answer to that. I read your story and I'm not really sure what specifically the prayer was. I can withdraw the question.
No. I don't really know if I actually knew consciously what my
Okay.
prayer was.
That's the point.
Yeah.
It may be the divine, God knew in your heart you wanted help to demonstrate love and have a better relationship with your dad.
Yes.
Could that be that the divine basically knew what was in your heart, maybe more than you did at that time?
Absolutely.
That's very possible. That's why when you're kind of stumped on that question, that's actually, I think it shows that you didn't express the prayer, but God knew what the prayer
Listen in my
was.
heart.
And because you had desire to heal the relationship, God will often take that, often will take your desires, if they're good, and turn it into prayers. And the prayer eventually is answered here.
Yes,
All
it
right.
was.
So you decide to send the letter, even though that was not, and I put out you didn't have to send the letter, because that took the pressure off. You could really just put whatever you wanted to put down, because nobody's going to read it. But then you mailed it.
I did mail it.
All right. What was the response from your dad?
Well, my dad received it, and he was very polite about it. He said, like, thank you. And
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, it wasn't like overboard, like, oh my goodness, or anything like that. But it did have an effect.
Okay.
It did. But I don't think that was the real effect, the healing that I'm going to talk about.
So this is a little more surprised. The letter started maybe a catalyst. So the letter in your story, you said that it definitely helped. But what was the thing that really, really made the difference?
It was the healing that God graced he and I with from deep within. Because, like, my life changed. I can't say it was overnight. It was more subtle as it went on. But, you know, closed heart,
Excuse me.
open heart. When your heart opens, that allows you to receive more love and give more love. If your heart's closed, it doesn't flow too well.
So whose heart are we talking about?
We're talking about mine at the moment.
Your heart.
Yeah. But it also had an effect with my father as well.
So the letter, he responded favorably.
Yes.
Not jumping for joy, but it was a start. But it sounds like you're saying he wasn't so much the problem. I don't want to put that words in, but your heart opened.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that. How did that affect your life when your heart opened towards your dad? Is that what you're saying?
It opened towards my dad, but it opened towards everything.
Not just your dad.
Right. My children, which I loved, but now I could give more love and receive more love. My spouse, my friends, relationships that I had.
So it was way beyond.
Yes.
The healing transcended just the relationship with your father, although that got better. Are you saying once your heart opened towards your father, that in your story, I thought it was interesting, you called him father when it was not so good. And once your heart opened, I don't know if you even noticed this in your story.
No, I didn't.
But you started calling him Dad. I think that's really interesting. So rather than praying that he gets all sorted out and he fixes his problems, it sounds like the prayer mostly opened your heart. And not only for your father, when your heart's closed, are you saying it affected your other relationships?
Absolutely. It affected everything.
Yeah. And that's the real danger with having a closed heart. With one person you care about, but you close down, once your heart's closed, it's like you said, it's closed. And then with your husband, with your friends, with neighbors, with your children, even though you're expressing love, did you feel it was diminished somewhat?
Yes.
Wow.
When your heart's closed, even though it might have been I'm closing it because of my father, you can't just section that off.
Are you saying when you close your heart against in one relationship, for whatever reason, it bleeds into other relationships?
That's what I learned. Yes.
Wow. So this wasn't just a letter of healing for you and your dad.
Correct.
Here's dad now. You and your dad, it was a healing of your heart and affected all your relationships.
And
Beautiful.
then that has amazing, ripple effects because, like with my children, if I'm relating better with them and able to give and receive more love, they then respond differently and maybe their heart opens a little bit more, and it's like this downstream flow of good stuff.
It's like it ripples. Once your heart's open, like ripples went out to everybody you came in contact with. So this is a letter, a love letter, and it was truly love letter expressed to your father, but it was way more than just between you and your dad.
Yes.
Your kids, everybody. So are you telling our audience out here, if they're all grumpy and uptight and they close their heart really hard with somebody in their life, that they're risking diminishing? Maybe they don't notice it. Did you notice that before?
No, I did not.
It was only once
it started opening
opened,
and I could see the benefit or the blessings that I was experiencing and then how other people interacted with me as well.
it seems like the healing is more for you than your father and everybody in your life.
I would definitely say that. I know my father received some things, but I can't speak for him. But from my perspective,
Wow, what a beautiful prayer. And aren't you
Yeah.
glad it was answered?
Yes, I am. But God does hear our prayers in God's time.
Even though you didn't express it, it was
Yeah.
in your heart. Back to your father or dad.
Yeah.
How did that go over the years? That was, what, 10 or 15 years
That was
ago?
The relationship improved. Now, we've always lived apart geographically, so it wasn't like he was down the road where we could go hang out together, but there were good phone calls. And whereas before, I would know my dad was calling me and I wouldn't answer the phone.
You said in your story in the book you would actually avoid answering the phone. And he lived up, where did he live?
In New Jersey.
New Jersey. And you've lived quite a while in Maryland and now in Virginia.
Correct.
So it was mostly by phone, but you would even accept his calls for long times.
That's correct.
Once you started talking on the phone, was it enjoyable?
It was. We had nice conversations. It was nice just to check in and hear each other's voice. And it was, it was like a relationship.
A real relationship.
Yeah.
A loving relationship.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
It was, so thank you.
So one relationship that as a child you closed your heart down, it affected way more than just you and your dad. I hope folks out there, I hope you really watch that. I hope you're still here. Because when you hold anger or you're for defense mechanism, you close down as a child, in this case maybe against a parent or somebody else, a sibling, it's very possible you're diminishing the quality of love with others in your life, as Renee learned. And that's it was a bigger problem than you realized. So thank goodness for answered prayers.
Yes, that's true.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just feel so blessed in knowing that God can read our hearts and know what's in them, even if we can't maybe articulate that.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Even if you cannot express a prayer, if it's really in your heart, deep in your heart, God accepts that as a prayer. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Do you feel your prayer was answered?
Absolutely. Even more than I would have expected, anticipated, or guessed.
Right. In your mind, I think the prayer was to have a better relationship with your father.
Yeah.
And it turned out improved all your relationships. Did that last for the rest of his life? He's deceased now. Did that improve the relationship for the rest of his life?
It did.
Very cool.
It really did.
All right, thank you for watching. And I know a lot of folks out there, you want to express love. That's a natural thing. As children of God, we want to express love, but we get locked down and we just can't open up sometimes. I think we all feel that sometimes. And in Renee's case, and I know other folks, they don't lock down for a day or two or an hour, sometimes for years after year after year. And I thank Renee for being here today, and her story in this book there's a lot more in the story we haven't covered today. But you might want to consider working through that anger or that closing down, because as Renee shared, it's not just with that one person. When your heart's closed, it bleeds into other relationships. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. Thank you.